Assemblyman Brebner, you may now join speak.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Maybe I should start by apologizing to my colleagues because I sat here, listened to the previous colleagues speak, and got inspired. And I am now on my feet again. I want to take this opportunity to thank the electoral district of Belgan-Glamorgan for having the confidence in me to represent them. But I think I want to extend that to the entire Tobago that allowed us to be in this place now, Madam Presiding Officer, where we can do something like this. And if you truly read the motion, Madam Presiding Officer, you would recognize that it actually does speak towards us critically thinking about this crime situation and us truly putting politics aside. Because it speaks to us doing in essence what the Tobago House of Assembly said, which was when there are items that require central government action, whoever is the government in Tobago should work closely with whoever is the government in Trinidad to ensure that whatever is done makes sense for the people of Tobago. Because we are a peculiar people, we are different. You know, we think about things differently, Madam Presiding Officer. But I wanted to stand today to talk about 3 areas where, as the Secretary with responsibility for health, wellness, and social protection, I think I needed to bring some clarity and some information to the population. For example, Madam Presiding Officer, as it relates to health, although the Tobago Regional Health Authority is the entity that is responsible for managing the provision of health care in Tobago, I am sure that many people do not know that the TTPS also has a Tobago health facility, Madam Presiding Officer. Madam Presiding Officer, I found this out because members of staff from the TTPS Tobago Health Facility have been having conversations, and we've been working through how we ensure that the people who are members of the TTPS can actually get the kind of medical service they require and not necessarily have to come into the hospital and the health center. And as a result, Madam Presiding Officer, I want to place on official record the fact that in addition to renting the vehicles and the space for people to stay and all of those things, in 2024, Madam Presiding Officer, out of our little pittance at the Division of Health, Wellness, and Social Protection, we actually provided support to the health facility that belongs to the TTPS in the sum of $157,991 of items. Now, in the grand scheme of things, when we are talking about a ministry that has a recurrent budget that is billions of dollars, this is not a lot of money. But the items that were needed, Madam Presiding Officer, were a bed to examine people, a chair so that we could be comfortable when we are sitting, simple little things that we were able to say, if we work together, if we collaborate on this, then we can work through collectively how to ensure that when the police officers who are ill, they can get service at this facility, and then they don't need to come to the hospital to the health center. And we were working through, okay, how do we get to the point of the things that that TTPS health facility cannot provide? How do we get to the point of now transitioning, ensuring that we do work collaboratively? So I wanted to just spend a little time and to place on Hansard the fact that this kind of collaboration, we've been doing it, and we've been doing it because we truly understand that even though they did run up in my house, the TTPS from Tobago are Tobagonians who we need to take care of. Madam Presiding Officer, another thing that comes up, and I kind of debated on whether I want to touch on this one or not, but it is the fact that the Minority Council continues to use this concept that unemployment is directly causing crime. When in fact, if you think through it, you would recognize that there are quite a lot of unemployed people who are not criminals. But the other thing is probably what concerns me even more. Because at the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection, even though, for example, the minority leader and others keep speaking about the fact that this government, in their mind, sending home all of these people, we have actually, within the last, since we've been in this position, hired at the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection, hundreds of people. And the sad thing about that is, we also recognize that even after we've hired some of these people, because we don't know who they are, I don't know who they are, my HCOs and my supervisors and so forth, they're the ones coming to me and telling me, but Dr. Faith, so from, he get in real trouble, boy. And this is somebody who, was hired a year, 2 years ago. So they are employed, but yet they're giving real trouble. We're having real challenges. We are, what can we do? Shall we start to implement the different kinds of programs in there so that we can meet them? So we are moving from just employment to almost having EAP and all of that ingrained in the system, which is kind of difficult to do on such a large scale, Madam Presiding Officer. But it goes to the fact that something else is happening. And even when you are employed, and even when you have a secure income, something else is happening. And that is not preventing some of those same individuals who are now gainfully employed, unionized, from doing the levels of criminality that we are seeing. That's the second thing I wanted to treat with. The third thing, and I promise this is going to be the last, is what is happening in social protection. And let me start by, again, it was repeated that this administration is making the process harder to get the grants and so forth. But if you remember, coincidentally, sometime between late 2021, Madam Presiding Officer, and early 2022, Madam Presiding Officer, the Ministry with responsibility for social welfare, which is, as I said, the ministry, made several drastic changes in policy, Madam Presiding Officer, that included a significant policy where if you were getting multiple types of grants, so if you were getting, for example, a disability grant on a food card, or you were getting a old age pension and the food card, that all of those recipients got a letter late 2021, early 2022 from the ministry indicating that they were taking away their food cards. And we are talking about, to be clear, Madam Presiding Officer, we're talking about the red food card, the ones that come from the ministry in Trinidad. And it's actually one of the reasons, Madam Presiding Officer, that we recognize we needed to do something else. And even the green food card that the Tobago House of Assembly is responsible for, instead of leaving it as a rigid emergency single-use food card, we actually changed the policy because we realized there were so many people who were thrown off of the red one, who needed the support of the green, and we changed the policy to allow them to be on it for longer than normal, and for it to take into consideration the size of your family. So instead of just getting the 500, no matter whether you had 1 child or 10, we took into consideration the size of your family to determine what multiple of $500 food card you were going to get. But more important than that, Madam Presiding Officer, I think at the Department of Social Protection in December, we did something that I'm most proud to have been part of. The Victim and Witness Support Unit of the TTPS reached out to the division indicating that they wanted to have a sit-down. They wanted to have, in essence, a cry session for the families of those of us in Tobago who lost somebody to gun violence. So probably at the last sitting, Madam Presiding Officer, you probably realized that I was not here at the sitting in December when my colleagues were giving Christmas greetings. It is because at that time, Madam Presiding Officer, I chose to go to that session where we collaborated with the Victim and Witness Unit to meet with the families of those individuals who were killed over the period of 2024. And we came together and we met with them and we had our counselors there and we had our therapeutic making of candles and we had our let us just get together and cry this away kind of session. Because we recognize that if we do not start healing those who are hurt, Madam Presiding Officer, those hurt people will keep hurting people. And we made the commitment then, Madam Presiding Officer, to continue collaborating with the TTPS in that program to ensure that we continue working together, because the aim of that program, Madam Presiding Officer, is the fact that when the Victim and Witness Unit do the initial kind of interaction and counseling with the families, after a while, they only have a certain number of sessions that they can provide to them. And when they are done with what the TTPS can provide, we transition them smoothly, if they still need to the therapeutic counselors who are at the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection. And I say that, Madam Presiding Officer, because, again, we kind of have to figure out collectively what we really, really, really need to do to help solve this problem. And I am standing here proud to be a member of this administration who is willing to put all of it aside, even though they run up in my house. Put all of it aside to say that this is what Tobago needs. And because this is what Tobago needs, we are willing to come together because this is what Tobago needs. And what we are asking for, Madam Presiding Officer, is for those on the other side to also see that this is what Tobago needs. And if all of us do the right thing for Tobago, we truly would become the greatest little island on the planet. And I hope that today is indeed one of those days that we are going to be proud of, because we did it, Madam Presiding Officer, for Tobago. I thank you.